It all started in college. We weren't just friends. We were practically family. He had my back and I had his. Late-night study sessions, weekend road trips, and deep conversations about life. If there was anyone I trusted without question, it was him. When I met her, it felt like fate. She was everything I wanted. Smart, kind, and effortlessly beautiful. He was there when I introduced her to our friend group, and I remember the way he smiled, almost too wide. But I brushed it off. He was my best friend. Why would I think anything else? The three of us became inseparable. She fit in so well with our dynamic that it never felt odd having him around. He made her laugh, sometimes harder than I did, but I told myself that was a good thing. A sign we all got along. Looking back, I see the moments I should have questioned. The way his eyes lingered a second too long when she wasn't looking. How they always seemed to have their own inside jokes that I wasn't a part of. Then came the small, passing comments. "You're lucky, man. She's one of a kind." Or, "If you ever mess up, someone else will swoop in." I laughed them off, thinking he was just being friendly. I had no reason to doubt him. There was this one time we all went out for dinner, and he knew her favorite dish before I did. I remember the quick glance they exchanged when I looked confused. She shrugged it off, saying, "Oh, I must have mentioned it in passing." But the way he smirked stuck with me. Another time she was upset about something, and I found them sitting too close on the couch, whispering. When I walked in, they both straightened up like teenagers caught doing something wrong. "Just giving her advice," he said with a grin. I didn't think much of it then, but now, every detail replays in my mind like a puzzle I should have solved sooner. The real kicker. He started acting like he knew our relationship better than I did. "You should take her out more, man. Keep things exciting," he'd say with a smirk. Or, "You don't notice how much she does for you." At first, I thought he was just looking out for me, but now I realize he was planting seeds of doubt. Then there was the night we were all at a party, and I stepped outside to take a call. When I came back, I saw them standing too close, whispering. She laughed at something he said, touching his arm lightly. When she noticed me watching, she pulled away fast. He played it off with some joke, but my gut told me something was off. I ignored it. I trusted him. I trusted her. But trust is a funny thing. It can blind you to the truth staring right at you. It started with small things. Moments I could have easily ignored. She became distant, her phone always face down, notifications silenced. When I asked if something was wrong, she'd smile and say, "Just stressed." He, on the other hand, was around more than ever, yet something felt different. Like he was too comfortable, too familiar with her in a way that didn't sit right with me. One evening, she canceled our date last minute, claiming she was exhausted from work. Later that night, I saw him post a story, just a blurry background of a restaurant, barely noticeable. But I recognized the place. It was her favorite spot. The next day, I casually mentioned wanting to take her there again. She hesitated for a split second before saying, "Oh, we should." Not "we went," just "we should." I told myself I was overthinking. But doubt once planted grows fast. Then came the text, meant for someone else. She was sitting beside me when her phone vibrated. I glanced at the screen and my stomach twisted. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." She grabbed her phone so fast it nearly fell from her hands. "Wrong number," she muttered, locking it immediately. But she wouldn't meet my eyes. I wanted to believe her. Maybe it was just a mistake. But something inside me had shifted. A week later, I caught them whispering again, this time in our apartment. As soon as I walked in, silence. He stood up, stretched like he had nothing to hide. She busied herself with her phone. My instincts screamed at me, but when I asked what they were talking about, he laughed. "Relax, man. Not everything's a conspiracy." She rolled her eyes and walked away. That night I barely slept. Every interaction, every lingering touch, every inside joke, they all started making sense. I remembered the way he always had a reason to be near her. How she started dressing up more when she knew he'd be around. How, when I kissed her, she felt distant. Then the final crack. I had to work late, but something told me to go home early. I didn't text. I didn't call. I just went. As I walked up to my door, I heard laughter. His voice, hers. My heart pounded as I stepped inside. The way they froze when they saw me, the way she quickly moved to the other side of the couch. It was like watching guilt in real time. My voice was calm when I asked, "What's going on?" She shook her head too quickly. "Nothing. We were just talking." His smirk was gone. I looked at her, then at him. And for the first time I saw everything clearly. I didn't say anything right away. I just stood there watching them, letting the silence stretch. She wouldn't look at me. He leaned back like he had nothing to worry about, but his fingers tapped against his knee. A nervous habit I had seen 100 times. "I know," I finally said. The words felt foreign coming out of my mouth, but I needed to say them. Needed to see their reactions. She flinched. He laughed, but it was forced. "Know what?" His voice was too casual, too rehearsed. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the text I had forwarded to myself from her phone that night, the one meant for him. Held it up. She went pale. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. That's when I knew for sure. "How long?" My voice was steady, but my hands clenched at my sides. She shook her head. "It's not what you think." He scoffed. "Man, you're making this a bigger deal than it is." Bigger deal. My best friend and my girlfriend behind my back lying to my face, and it wasn't a big deal. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "So tell me, what is it then?" She finally spoke. "It was a mistake." Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean." Cut her off. "You didn't mean to do it. Or you didn't mean for me to find out." She looked down. He exhaled loudly, shaking his head. "Look, man. I never wanted to hurt you. That was the part that made me snap. But you did." My voice was sharp, cold. "And not just once. You had plenty of chances to stop. But you didn't." Neither of them said anything. Because there was nothing left to say. I turned to her. "Do you love him?" Her lips parted, but she hesitated. That hesitation was my answer. I looked at him. Was it worth it? He didn't answer. Maybe because he didn't know. Maybe because he didn't care. I nodded slowly, feeling an eerie sense of calm. "All right." That was it. I walked away. No yelling. No fighting. Just the sound of my footsteps leaving behind everything I thought I knew. The days that followed felt hollow. I had spent years building friendships, trust, and love, only to realize none of it had been real. The betrayal didn't just break my heart. It made me question everything. Every memory felt tainted, every laugh, every late-night conversation. Had I just been blind, or had they been that good at lying? He tried reaching out. A long text filled with apologies, excuses, and promises that meant nothing now. "I never wanted to hurt you. I made a mistake. I still care about you." I didn't respond. What was there to say? She had made her choice. So had he. And now it was my turn. He didn't bother with an apology. Maybe he thought silence would make it easier. Maybe he just didn't care enough. Either way, it told me everything I needed to know. Mutual friends started picking sides. Some stayed neutral, too uncomfortable to get involved. Others messaged me, saying they had suspected something but didn't want to interfere. That part stung the most, knowing people had seen the signs but chose to stay silent. First, I wanted revenge. I wanted them to feel the same pain, the same gut-wrenching betrayal. But what would that change? It wouldn't erase what they did. It wouldn't fix what was broken. And I refused to let their actions define me. So I moved forward. Not overnight. Not easily. But step by step. I cut all ties, blocked their numbers, and focused on myself. It wasn't about pretending it didn't happen. It was about making sure it didn't control me. Months later, I heard through a friend that they didn't last. He cheated on her with someone else. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. She had destroyed something real for a man who saw her as disposable. And him. He lost the only real friend he ever had. He tried reaching out again. A short message this time. I miss you. I stared at it for a long time before deleting it without replying. I had nothing left to say. Some betrayals break you. Others remind you of who you are. And this made me realize I was better off without them.